Bonjour and welcome to this tutorial on les adjectifs en français, adjectives in French. The aim of the tutorial is to help you to understand what an adjective is and how you can use it accurately in French. We're going to start off with a little game to just warm you up a bit, so it will revise colours and it will also really get your brain thinking because the aim of the game is to say the colour of the font, not the word that is written. So you will see a word pop up on the screen and I want you to say the colour of the font, not the word that's written. Okay, let's crack on. Vert, jaune, violet, bleu, jaune, noir, vert, orange, blanc. Okay, how did you do? Well, I think we better start with a bit of grammar. Okay, so what is a noun then? Well, a noun is a name of a person, place or thing. And usually before a noun we would say the or a, maybe my or his or her, or some numbers. So some examples in English: the fork, a chair, my brother, two people. Now I'm going to show you a text on the screen and I'd like you to identify the nouns in the text. I will read the text out loud and then give you a little while just to think about where the nouns are in the text. J'habite dans une maison. Il y a 4 chambres, une salle de bain, une cuisine, un jardin et un garage. Dans ma chambre, il y a un lit, la télé, ma peluche et 3 posters, la lampe et le bureau. Okay, have you identified the nouns? Let's see. Here you have the nouns written in red. Just quickly to point out this noun here, salle de bain, is actually composed of 2 nouns. Because it means bathroom, in French it means a room of bath. So we have there one noun at the start, une salle, and another noun, bain, meaning bath. The gender of the word is une, it is feminine, and that's the gender of the first part of the word. So une salle and une salle de bain. Okay. So, what is an adjective? Well, an adjective, quite simply, is just a describing word, so a word that describes another word or a noun. So, for example, big, red, good, milky or tall. And in English, adjectives come before the noun. So, a big apple, my red book, or the Milky Way. In French, however, most adjectives come after the noun. And just to give you an idea of an example, here we have a very famous poster, you might have seen this before, le chat noir, the black cat. You can see that we do not say the black cat in French, but the cat, black. Okay, so just to give you a sort of example of how it usually happens in French. So how do we use adjectives then? What's the difference between adjectives in French and adjectives in English? Well, as we've just seen, we use them after the noun usually, but also we must make the adjective agree with the noun that it is describing. So if the adjective is describing a feminine noun, we need to add E to the adjective. If it is describing a plural noun, so more than one thing, then we add S to the adjective. And what about if it's feminine and plural? Well, simply put, as you might imagine, we add an E and an S to the adjective. So to see this in some examples then, we have la voiture bleue, the blue car, les stylos verts, the green pens, les araignées noires, the black spiders. Now in English we don't have genders for nouns, so it's something that we have to learn and be aware of when we're learning French. The word voiture, meaning car, is a feminine word, la voiture. So we have added our E onto the adjective. Now with this one, you don't hear the difference when you are speaking this phrase, la voiture bleue. Bleu would sound the same if it didn't have an E on the end of it. But obviously when we're writing it, you very clearly see it, so it's important that you write it down. Les stylos verts. Now we can see from this bit les that this is a plural word, and obviously we can see our S on the end of the noun itself as well. So we've added an S to the adjective to make it plural. Stylo is a masculine noun in the singular form. If there was just one of them, we would be saying un stylo. So we don't need to add anything other than the S to the adjective. In the third example, this is also plural, les araignées, but the word araignée is feminine. Une araignée in the singular, one spider. So that is why we have added the E and the S to the adjective. Now, in the examples that I have just given, we don't really hear a difference with these endings. But it's important to note that for some adjectives, adding an E to the end of it will change the pronunciation. So, for example, in the second one, if we had made the word vert feminine, we would hear the T at the end. It would become verte. So here are some colours to refresh your memory. We start off at the top here with blanc, which as you can see in brackets, we haven't just got an E, but we've got an HE as well. And that's for pronunciation. So when blanc is describing a feminine noun, we say blanche rather than just blanc. The next few all end in an E already, so rouge, orange and jaune. These adjectives already end in an E, so we do not need to add an extra E. We can add an S to rouge if it is describing a plural noun, and an S to jaune if it is describing a plural noun. But orange does not take an S, and the reason for this is that orange is also a noun. It's also an orange, as in the fruit. And that also goes for the colour marron, which is brown, but it's also the word for a chestnut. So marron also, although it's not on the screen here, is an example of an adjective that does not take an E or an S. Then you have vert, which, as I was mentioning previously, is one of the adjectives that changes its pronunciation with an E on the end. So vert becomes verte. And then bleu, from our previous example, and violet, which again is slightly irregular in that it takes an extra T and an E in the feminine. So violet becomes violette. Now we know how adjectives work in French, let's have a go at putting them into practice. So back to our original text then. You have your nouns already highlighted in red. Now I'd like you to have a go at improving this text by adding some adjectives to it. So get a pen and paper at the ready. You can pause your screen and write down the text, adding adjectives to describe these red nouns. How did you get on? Maybe you had something along the lines of J'habite dans une maison blanche. Il y a 4 chambres violettes. Une salle de bain verte une cuisine noire, un jardin vert et un garage bleu. Dans ma chambre jaune, il y a un lit rouge, la télé blanche, ma peluche violette et 3 posters noirs, la lampe bleue et le bureau noir. What a colourful house that would be. Okay, not all adjectives in French are placed after the noun. Some adjectives are in fact placed before the noun, like we do in English. These you can memorise using the acronym BAGS, and that stands for adjectives that describe beauty, age, goodness or badness, or size. So some examples then. Petit, meaning small. Grand, meaning large or big. Joli, meaning pretty. Nouveau, or in the feminine nouvelle, meaning new. And vieux, or in the feminine vieille, meaning old. These are all BAGS adjectives, and therefore they will go before the noun instead of after. So, if we have a look again back at our text, now that we know some adjectives go before the noun and some adjectives go after, I'd like you to have a go at improving that text a little bit further by adding in some of the BAGS adjectives before these nouns. Remember, the adjectives still have to agree with the noun they're describing. How did you get on? Perhaps you had something along the lines of this. Dans ma petite chambre rouge, il y a un grand lit vert. That's just an example. You obviously had many options that you could have used in that text. And remember, colours aren't the only adjectives. They're a handy example to use for today's lesson, but there are lots of other adjectives that can describe nouns. So we have marrant for funny, sportif, which in the feminine becomes sportive, I-V-E, instead of just adding an E. Paresseux, which in the feminine becomes paresseuse, meaning lazy. And intéressant, which becomes intéressante in the feminine, meaning interesting. Now you know the important bits about adjectives in French, why not have a go at describing the things in your room? You can try it now. Bon courage!